Hello, everyone. I'm News Nine's Amanda Taylor, and I am so glad you're here with us because we are going to talk about something that is so important. Self-care. I know it sounds great, doesn't it? Self-care, but how do we do it, right? How do we actually do that in our lives? And did you know that there are five different types of self-care that will actually help our mental health? So that is what we're going to focus on today, our mental health and self-care. And let me tell you, we have advice, tried and true advice from mental health professionals. I think we'll all get something out of this. I want to introduce them to you. We are joined by two experts in the mental health field, Sarah Rahal, who is the CEO of Sunbeam Family Services, and Shayla Winrow, a licensed professional counselor at Sunbeam. Thank you both for being with us.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Sarah, tell us a little bit about Sunbeam.
Well, Sunbeam, our mission is to build brighter futures with children and families, and we do that through early education, mental health services, and foster care.
You do a lot. And Shayla, you work there at Sunbeam. Tell us what your focus is always on.
My focus is on providing therapy services to clients. So I see people that are 6 years old all the way up to grandparents, and I just help them with their mental health.
Okay, so no matter our age, you are going to help us, especially when it comes to self-care. Now let's break it down because when I think of self-care, I think that sounds luxurious. It sounds so nice, but it sounds like a luxury. Um, and it sounds a little selfish to me in my head if I'm going to take the time to do it. So let's break it down. How do you think of self-care? Sarah, I'll start with you.
Well, I think you're right, Amanda. Most people do think of it as something that's luxurious or it's selfish, even. And that's why they may make it a lower priority or put it off. And really, self care isn't self indulgent at all. It's really about what you deserve and what is good for your mental health. And that means it requires discipline. And self care is something that when we pay attention to that, it leads us to better mental health. So go ahead, Shelley, you say a little bit more about that.
Yes, I agree with you. And as much as I would like for it to be about indulgence and luxury, I would have to choose discipline as the definition of self-care, right? How do you feel when you have this heavy meal?
Mhm.
Probably a little uncomfortable,
Mhm.
right? Uh, and so with self-care, if we define it as discipline, then we can look at it and say, okay, self-care is actually a skill, right? It's not this thing that we punish ourselves with because that's what a lot of people think of when they think of discipline. It's actually a skill that we can work on to improve our lives. And how much is that going to change how we approach self-care if we think of it as a skill to get great at rather than, something to be punished by or to overindulge?
I love how you put it. It is not a selfish thing, especially when you consider that it's good for our mental health. So, because it is a discipline, it might take a little bit of practice. And you guys have broken down self care into five different categories. So, let's talk about those just a little bit so you can all help us get on the same page. Sarah, talk to us first about connection as self care.
Yes, I think we pretty much know all of us as humans, we are not meant to be alone. And we especially learned that, I think, post pandemic, that we need human connection. And we need that connection to be meaningful and intentional and not to put it off. I think most people will say that. I don't look back and think, I wish I worked more or was busier. I often say, I wish I spent more time with family and friends. And so I think connection is really about making that a priority and choosing who fills us up, because that is also that definition of self-care is it promoting our well-being, not spending time with people who drag us down. And I think connection is also about connecting to our spirituality and connecting in nature. It's not just with people, but making that time to really connect to what feels meaningful to us.
So, Shayla, in your practice, what's the best way to go about trying to improve our connection with others?
Right. So I think it's like Sarah was saying, being intentional, right? So if there are 4.6 billion people on social media right now, right? It could feel like, oh, getting on social media, I'm connected. But when we have the intentionality of sitting face to face in front of people, something different happens. It just feels different. It creates happiness chemicals in your brain, is what I call them. And so, what I say is, hey, reach out when you can. Try to make those intentional connections wherever you are, right? Whether it's at work, whether it's, yes, with friends and family, but also in my therapy practice, I call therapy a relationship. Right? And I think that the most effective therapy is when you have a connection with your therapist that you can, feel vulnerable and comfortable with.
Somebody that you can open up to. What
Mhm.
do you say, Shayla, if somebody's like, oh, you know what, I'm kind of a shy person. I don't know about this whole connection thing.
Yeah, I completely understand that. And that's what I tell people. It is a vulnerable thing. It's an uncomfortable thing for you to come in and tell me your life story because we don't know each other. But just being willing to step into that space and try to trust the process a little bit of, hey, we're going to be uncomfortable at first, but we can relax into this eventually and it will be okay. And if it doesn't seem like you have a connection with your therapist at first, just ask for another therapist if you're at Sunbeam or reach out to another therapist if you go somewhere else. It's okay to do that.
I love this advice. This is good. Stay away from those toxic connections. This is good. Okay. So our second thing when it comes to self-care that will help us all is sleep. I know it's overrated, right? When it comes to our mental health, no, no. Okay, so Sarah, why is sleep so important when it comes to our mental health?
Yes, I think we know that when you think about how we take care of children, and especially little ones, we're always worried about their sleep and their naps and making sure they get enough rest. And somehow as adults, we sacrifice sleep. We stay up too late, we stay on our phones too late, and recognize I think that's where that discipline comes right back in, that sleep is restorative, sleep is healing. Sleep calms our brain, sleep heals our body, and we really do need it. And it's one of the top problems. Insomnia is one of the biggest problems that people suffer with. And really learning the techniques and the skills and paying attention to how you can get better sleep and making that a priority. I know one friend of mine says, I have to put my phone in the other room, and I bought an alarm clock because otherwise I am checking my phone throughout the night to to say what time is it, but then I get on my phone. So I really think that how you set up your bedtime rituals, how you pay attention to your sleep, and it's every day. You know, the older you get, 2 or 3 bad nights can take 2 to 3 weeks to recover from. So sleep is really crucial to how our brain works and how our body works.
So I like that piece of advice. Get your phone in the other room because I think a lot of us fall into that trap where we just mindlessly start to scroll. We're like, oh, it's going to relax me. I'll fall asleep. And the next thing we know, it's an hour later than we anticipated.
Yes, and that light is disruptive to our sleep patterns. So
Okay.
it's amazing what we know not to do, but we have to work at it.
That's so true. So the third thing that we need to work at when it comes to our self-care, you say, is fueling our body. I think so many of us think about fueling our body when it comes to our physical health, but so much is related to our mental health as well. Shayla, talk to us about that and how eating is related to achieving our goals and our productivity and our mental health.
Yes. So food can definitely weigh us down. It can make us feel tired, right? Think about how you feel after you have a very heavy meal, right? But what if you loved yourself enough and cared for yourself enough to actually have a good, healthy, balanced meal? Just think about how you feel. You feel like you can conquer everything, right? We can meet all of our goals. So when I think about it, I say, okay, how do I have the willpower to make those choices all throughout my day? I think it's planning ahead. You have to plan ahead. We have to prepare, which again goes back to that whole discipline definition, right? If we build up those skills, we have the motivation to make all of the thousands of choices that we make every single day. And if we can take just one of those choices away by saying, okay, I'm going to prepare to make my food, to have a good menu planned out for myself, to make sure that I have these vitamins that I'm hitting, it makes all of the difference when it comes to getting your goals prepped and reaching your goals.
As I'm hearing us talk about all these, I feel like you really have to be intentional about a lot of this.
Yes, you do. I think intentionality makes all of the difference when it comes to self-care, right? And like I said earlier, with the motivation to do that, prepping and planning and preparing, it helps so much with caring for yourself.
Okay, great for our mental health. So the fourth thing when it comes to self-care that you say that we need to talk about is improving our activity and exercise. And I don't think we need science or public health information to know that it's important. But again, a lot of times we think about that when it comes to exercising or physical activity. That's helping our physical self. But how does it help our mental health, Sarah? And then also, what's your advice for even getting started with that?
Well, we know that moving and physically being active just really impacts how we're able to think and how productive we are. And so sometimes when I'm talking to somebody about exercise, I start with, let's talk about moving. Because if we say, well, I'm going to run 3 miles, we know that may be a harder goal to achieve versus every day I'm going to move for 10 to 15 minutes by walking, by being outside, whatever that is. And I love the book, James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, because it's really about breaking it down that I have to build the habit. So if I say every day I'm walking to the mailbox and I do it every day, then I can extend it to every day now I'm going to walk the entire block and then I'm going to add 3 blocks. But until I build in those habits, if I set the goal of 3 miles, how am I actually going to achieve it? It's what do I do today? So I think that idea of moving and also we hear a lot now about yoga and Pilates and stretching. And that is moving. It's moving our body. It's pacing up and down the hallway at work when we're on a phone call rather than sitting sedentary. And that requires, as Shayla said, that intentionality. And so sometimes I think about putting that on my calendar. If I wait till 9 o'clock at night, it might not happen. But if it's on my calendar at 11:30 during the day, I'm committing to my 20-minute walk, I'm more likely to do it. So I think it's making it that priority and starting in small bits.
You're talking about taking baby steps when it comes to that and to the moving. Would you say take the baby steps too when it comes to when we say, these are 5 things you can do for self-care? Like, hey, you don't have to do it all at once as long as you just start somewhere. What's
Yeah.
your advice for that or your thoughts on that?
Oh, totally agree with you that I would pick where am I not paid attention to. Maybe I'm doing okay on eating, but I can tell my sleep is really impacting me, that I might say I'm going to put in a new habit in sleep. So I think really it takes some reflection time to think about where am I at? How does my body feel? How do I emotionally feel? And maybe think about these 5 categories is where do I feel most efficient in or the opposite, what might be the easiest thing to start adding where I'm doing well. So I think you can go either way. Some people are motivated by I'm doing great here, I'll do a little better. And other people are motivated by I'll do it where I'm the worst. That's where I'll start.
I like that. Okay, Shayla, this next one's for you. And I think this is easier said than done that relaxation reduces stress. Uh, we all want to relax, right? So talk to us about that and how we get better at relaxing.
I think first it starts with how you think about it in the beginning, right? A lot of times I will have clients that tell me that relaxation isn't something they have time for or that they haven't worked hard enough to deserve it, right? But if we think of relaxation as something that can actually make you productive, that could actually give you opportunities to be motivated, that changes the entire way that we approach it, right? So remember that it can be productive. Remember that this is, again, a skill to build. So for the skills that you need to build for engaging in relaxation, I'd say having a strong no reflex, right? We've got to be able to say no and know our limits.
What's the
It's
best
so
way to do
important.
that, Shayla? I gotta know. Because that's so hard for
No,
so many of us.
it is. Go to therapy. Therapists can help. But also, I think knowing what your values are is so important, right? What's important to you as a person? And are you honoring that as you're going throughout your day, right? If it's important to me to be kind to people, then I'm going to do everything that I can to continue being kind to people. If it's important to me to be a person that's in shape, I'm going to say, no, I cannot, definitely cannot go and eat tons and tons and tons of popcorn and sushi. I can say no to that and say, I'm going to be a healthy person. I'm going to eat this salad. Okay.
You kind of know what your end goal is too.
Exactly.
I've heard it said that, when you say no, you're actually saying yes to something else. And so that
Exactly.
helped me change my mindset. It's like, okay, I'm saying no because I need that time for something else that is probably more important.
Exactly. Right. And that's why I say this is so important when it comes to relaxation, right? You're creating the time to give yourself opportunity to have energy later on.
And is relaxation just sitting there and relaxing, or can it be like actually doing something else you enjoy?
It
And
can
that's
be.
considered relaxing.
Yes, I think the most important part is having that childlike wonder to discover the things that give you that sense of relaxation. If I find it relaxing to read, great. Some people don't, but I'm going to explore to find that out. Mhm.
So, how do we start? How do we connect and start with our self care to improve our mental health? Where is that first step that we all need to be taking? Shayla, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think, like Sarah said, assess where you are, right? Where you need to make the changes, and then start to stack your habits. What are you already doing that you can engage in? So if I make my coffee every morning, I can also stand there and do some deep breathing while my coffee's brewing. That's great self care. If I walk my dog daily, I can reach out and invite a friend to walk with me. And that's a way to connect and build that momentum. And I think remembering that it is absolutely okay to feel like I'm not doing enough. It's okay. If you just make one step forward, that's great. Just engage in what you can engage in and stack the habits that you already, that already exist to new habits. Right?
And Sarah, what would you add to that when it comes to starting our self care journey?
I think because at Sunbeam we're a lot about early education, I consider treat yourself like a toddler. That with our toddlers, we worry about their sleep, their eating, going outside changes their mood. Do they have playmates? Do they have activities that help them learn? That some days it might be good for me to eat an ice cream and binge on Netflix, but if I'm doing that every day, then I wouldn't want my toddler doing that. I might say, yes, today we're going to have the ice cream, but not the next 5 days. So I think about, how do we treat ourselves, especially when you're a parent, that you look out for your child, they're your priority. But we have to put that oxygen mask on ourselves too. And before we put it on our little one, but if we treated ourselves more like a toddler, I think we would look out better for ourselves.
And it's better for everybody. Like you said, put that oxygen mask on you first. That's one of the things they say on the plane. But the same goes for our self care. You got to take care of yourself so you can take care of others around you. But Shayla, before we say goodbye, I would like to talk a little bit about if you have young kids or children in your lives, what's the best way to help them with their self care? Because here we are talking about how important it is. And then I think as a parent, I'm like, okay, you need to go do this, this, and this, and this, and this. Uh, how do we teach them that self care is important? And what's kind of a tangible thing that they can do to learn that at a younger age?
Right. I think starting with remembering that they are also learning how to be people, right? And so, because of that, remember we're the teachers, we're the model of self care. So, start with yourself, model that for them, and then also help them build routine into what they do daily. If we build moments of self care into what they're already doing, then they will be much more likely to carry that on and to engage in those moments and to ask for those moments themselves because they know it's coming. Oh, mom, we do deep breathing now. We're going to do deep breathing now because this is what you've taught me. So,
That's what I was going to ask you. Like, what do you see as a good thing for kids to do when it comes to self care? I mean, that's okay. That's something easy we can do is the deep breathing. Is there anything else that you advise parents with young children to do?
mhm. I think building in moments of connection is so important.
Okay.
Rituals of connection where we say, this is our special thing that we always do. Maybe it's we always give hugs at a certain time. Maybe we have a secret handshake that we always do. But that makes all of the difference, I think, when it comes to children having that special connection with their caregivers. Mhm.
Thank you both. Thank you for helping change the definition of self care. I appreciate that so much. Is there anything else that either one of you wants to add before we say goodbye?
No, just thank you for this opportunity. I think the more we talk about it and we talk about positive mental health, that this is a way for all of us to focus on that. We also reduce the stigma, which I think is so crucial. So I appreciate your focus on this and your interest.
Yes.
Well, thank you both, Sarah Ray Hall and Shayla Winrow. Thank you so much. And let me tell you, if you need a little bit more information on this, and maybe you need that life coach, you need a counselor, Sunbeam Family Services, they do have counselors there. They've always been great to work with. And they also, if you're like, you know what, I can't afford counseling, they do have a sliding scale. So they really want to make it accessible for everyone. And at the very least, at least hopefully you're walking away with a little bit more information on how to take care of yourself and how to take care of your mental health. For self care to be effective, we do have to tune in to what our body, mind, and spirit need. So slow down, tune in long enough to listen. And we just hope you have a great day and make your mental health a priority. Have a good one.